Good morning everyone and welcome to Casula Powerhouse Arts Centre on this fantastic Girls Get Active Day and International Women's Day as well. It's quite a privilege to have you here. My name's Kirsten Fishburn and I'm the Director of the Centre, so I get to officially say hi to you all. It's now my pleasure to introduce you to our MC for this morning, Stephanie Brantz. Stephanie is a television presenter currently working for ABC Television. She started broadcasting with SBS and finished there as the 2006 host of Toyota World Sport. Moving to Channel 9, she presented sport on the Sunday program, as well as reporting on the Ashes Summer, NBL Highlights Show, and presenting sport for Nightline and the Sydney 6 o'clock news. In the last 12 months working at the ABC, and it sounds like a pretty busy 12 months, she's hosted the W League, WNBL, Championships Trophy Hockey, Women's Golf, Women's Cricket, the London Paralympics, as well as the Australian of the Year and the Dawn Service from Gallipoli. So we're very fortunate to have Stephanie here today to host the Girls Get Active breakfast. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kirsten. May I add my welcome to all of you. Now, Kirsten, you made me sound quite tired listening to all of that, but very much enjoyed my time at the ABC thus far, but I have to tell you, you're about to meet some infinitely more talented women this morning here to my left, who we'll be chatting to in just a moment. It is fabulous to see you all here on this International Women's Day, and it's quite fitting that we're meeting here on this day. Casula Powerhouse has been working on this exhibition of women in sport for quite some time. I've been lucky enough to be part of that group that helped come up with some of the ideas for the exhibition, so I hope you get a great deal of pleasure and interest from looking at that throughout the day. Now, before we go any further, I would like to introduce Marsha Ella Duncan, OAM, who is a former Australian netballer. In fact, she was the first Indigenous netballer to represent Australia, the first Indigenous female scholarship recipient at the Australian Institute of Sport, and we'll hear more from Marsha a little later, but for now, please welcome her as she comes up to give us an acknowledgement to country.
And good morning, young women, I should say. It is wonderful to be here this morning and to be part of women's sport events. The traditional acknowledgement or welcome to country is, for Aboriginal people, a very important part of visiting somebody else's area. So in that context, you are considered visitors. In traditional days, Aboriginal people lived in particular areas, and when they visited another area, it was their custom to seek permission before, entering into those lands. Today we call that the welcome to country or the acknowledgement to country, and it's my pleasure to be able to do that this morning. We're meeting here today on what is Gundungurra land, and I would like to acknowledge and pay my respect to the Gundungurra elders, both past and present. And on their behalf, I would like to welcome you here to the Powerhouse Centre this morning. The Gundungurra people occupied a lot of areas along the Georges River and are very closely connected to my own traditional group, which is the Bidjigal people around Botany Bay, and also the Yuin people of the far south coast. So in acknowledging and paying respect to our elders past and present, I would also like to acknowledge and pay my respects to the elders that are here today, but particularly to you. Welcome to Gundungurra country. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marsha, and as I said, we'll be hearing Marsha's story shortly. To those of you who've just come in, welcome. It's great to have you here. Please just make yourselves at home, and to let you know, we're going to chat to each of our special guests, and you're free to ask questions when I've got a little bit of background out of them, and we'll get them to tell you about how they got involved in sport and the positive impact it's had on their lives. And then it's your opportunity to ask any questions you have about the various sports. And as a reward, in about 50 minutes' time, you'll get breakfast. So sit back, relax, and enjoy yourselves. And let me introduce the first of our superwomen who've come to chat to us today. We've got Libby Sadler, who is in the All-Australian AFL team and highest goal kicker in that same year. She's a New South Wales state representative in AFL, and she's joined today by New South Wales state teammate Lael Kassem. So please welcome Libby and Lael. So ladies, could you start please by telling us, Libby first, how you got involved in AFL, because there are a couple of football codes we don't usually think of being something that the chicks get involved in. So could you tell us how you started?
Certainly. I think the fact that AFL is something the chicks don't normally get involved in is one of the things I love about it. But I started playing footy, I think I discussed with someone this morning, about 8 years ago. Spent my youth playing everything that I could. I grew up in a small country town, played basketball my whole life. I played golf, I played squash, I played soccer, whatever the town had to offer, I played it because it's a small town, there's nothing else to do. Came to Sydney, played basketball all throughout uni, and then someone said, come and try AFL. Tried it 8 years ago and haven't looked back. Try to take it as far as I can and just love it.
And Lael, how about you?
I started playing AFL because I've got 9 older brothers who all play AFL. And there wasn't an opportunity for us to play living in Auburn. And then we started up the Auburn Tigers women's team, and we gave an opportunity to all the girls to play. And I just wanted to play because I was always watching my brothers, and I wanted to be like them, and it's been the best experience.
Are you better than all your brothers?
Sure.
Tell us about how AFL is a positive influence for women. Obviously, it's a running game. It's tough. It's physical. What sort of influence has it had on your life to play it?
It's sport, any sport in general, but especially AFL teaches you so many different disciplines that you use outside of sport. So AFL has taught us to be disciplined and responsible, and it challenges our ability, it challenges our mental aspect and what we can achieve. And because we do play AFL and it does challenge us in all those ways that you mentioned, I think it's made us stronger.
And Libby, how about you? You're nodding there. Now, you're clearly quite talented in a number of sports. Why particularly AFL, and what impact has it had on your life?
Yep. What I love about AFL is, unlike basketball, netball, you've got 18 people on a field, and just on your team, 24 on a squad during a game, and those 24 can range between my height of 6 foot through to 4 foot nothing. They can be 70 kilos, they can be 40 kilos, they can be a fast runner, or they can just be really strong and defensive. The thing about footy is somewhere on the field for everybody, it doesn't matter your height, size, skill range, etc. There's always somewhere on the field for you in footy, and I think that's the main thing I love about footy. Whereas basketball, netball, you struggle if you don't make that first 5, if you don't make that first 12. It's different. It's more difficult to get into a squad, but with footy, there's somewhere for everybody, and I just love it.
We could get Marsha to answer the netball question.
I think I'm going to try AFL, actually.
You got the last right of reply. So, Lael, tell us also from a cultural background. Can you tell us a bit about the cultural background of your family?
My parents are both Lebanese, born in Lebanon. And then 4 of my brothers were also born in Lebanon, and the rest were born in Australia, raised up in Australia. So I come from a traditional Lebanese background. But because of my brothers and their upbringing in Australia, it became more of an Aussie-Lebanese kind of mix identity. So we got to experience, being Australian, playing Australian sport, which is AFL, and also keeping that cultural heritage, and that never got lost because we still identify ourselves with my dress and my culture, but I'm also able to participate in sport and in Australian culture. So for some of the girls on our team, it was a bit of a struggle for their parents to get involved, but once they did, and once the parents understood the importance of it, and once they seen how much the girls enjoyed it, and that they supported them, and it's been a big experience and a big step for our older generation to encourage the next generation.
And you're a wonderful example, Lael, of the multicultural that we are embracing and particularly celebrating here on Sport for Women. Can you tell us if there's been a negative aspect to that? Have you ever felt racially vilified?
No, not with AFL. AFL has been really, really supportive, and all the other clubs have loved us, and they've encouraged us and supported us and wanted to know everything about us, because it is abnormal, not abnormal, but it was new for the AFL to see a majority of our team are Muslim and majority are wearing the scarf. So it was very new for them, and they just grabbed it with everything, and they supported us and they catered for us, and the girls learnt so much more about the Anglo culture, and they also learned about us. So it was a great way to learn about the Australian community and also integrate and have that multiculturalism within AFL. So it was, very good.
That is wonderful to hear. Would you agree with that, Libby? Is that part of what AFL does? It embraces all backgrounds. You talked about the different sizes. It embraces everybody?
Yeah, definitely. When I'm not playing footy, my job is to promote female footy across New South Wales ACT, and I can certainly attest to the Auburn Tigers being one of the best things that have happened to the Women's League in Sydney and to the AFL in general. They've absolutely been a fabulous group. They've come in and embraced it with everything. They've given it 100% and really show that anybody can play it. Whether it's, I did single out netball and stuff before.
I wish you'd left me alone, Libby.
The idea is that everybody can play sport. It doesn't matter where you're from or what you play. If there's an opportunity to play sport, to play it. And I would encourage everybody in the room, if you're interested, to Google the Auburn Tigers. There's a lot of information out there about them, and they're a group that really highlights the ability for everybody to get involved in sport.
All right, so if you live near that catchment area for the Auburn Tigers, as Libby just said, Google them. What if they don't? How can they get involved in AFL?
Just Google female football. It's probably easiest than me rattling off a website for you, but there are more and more opportunities from Auskick right through to senior women's footy, youth girls footy. Speak to your teachers, tell them you want to get involved in the Giants Cup at school. Would probably be the best way to do it. But the Auburn Tigers will give you you'll see media stuff and all sorts of snippets on how to play, etc. If you Google the Tigers, they'll be fun.
Just a question, raise your hands if you've got AFL at your school. All right, good stuff. Sorry, just curious, that one. Ladies, it's actually your turn now. Have any of you got any questions about AFL, about how to get involved, more about the sport, or about these two ladies' career? Don't be shy. Did you tell them everything already?
I must have told them everything. Just in case we do have more information outside. Teachers, we've got prospectus documents.
Excellent.
So we can get you involved.
Great stuff. Please thank Lael and Libby. All right, next up, we're going to stick with football. Welcome, ladies at the back. How are you going? You thought you were arriving just in time for breakfast, but you're getting some info before breakfast. Have a seat. As I explained to the others, we're just going to have a chat to these fantastic sportswomen to my left. And my name is Stephanie Branson from the ABC, and I'll just be taking you through the chat. We've just spoken to Libby Sadler and Lael Kassim from AFL, and now we're sticking with football. We're going to change the shape of the ball. We're going to the World Game, and Danielle Brogan is a Matilda, as is the lady next to her, Heather Garriock, and they're both members of the Sydney FC W League team that lifted another trophy just a few weeks ago. Now, Heather has been out this season because she had a baby about 5 minutes ago, and Brogues has been out because she's coming back from a knee reconstruction. So we're going to hear a bit about also what happens when you have to step out of your sport for a while. Ladies, welcome. Now you're going to have to share a mic, but Brogues, let's start with you. What's the best thing about playing football?
What's not good about playing football? I mean, like the girls said, we grew up playing a lot of sports as well, but I guess it got to a stage where we had to pick one of them. But for myself, I've been brought up on it. My parents came over from the UK, and over there, football's religion. So for me, it's more so what I've learned outside of the game. So travelling the world from 15 years of age with a group of girls that I'm still friends with, nearly 10 years on. That's a big thing for me, and I know that obviously you meet your friends at school, or when you finish school you meet your friends at work, whereas for me, I went to an all-girls Catholic school and they weren't exactly sport orientated. So when I left school, I knew that the group of girls that I play with today, some of them have retired now, but I know that they're going to be there for the rest of my life. So for me, I mean, you do that in every sport, but obviously football was the one that I chose, and what I've achieved, what I've established away from the game is a big one for me.
And Heather, how about you? You're a proper Western Sydney product, aren't you? You grew up playing the game, and in fact, probably kicking a ball around with some of our Socceroos. Was that just something that was something you did from the start?
Yeah, I think at a really young age, my parents, or my dad's Scottish, he's from the UK, so basically born into my blood. And at a very young age, at 6 years old, I started playing football, and it's something that I loved and something that I had a passion for very early on. So it was nice that I did find that passion early on. I did grow up around here. I grew up in Campbelltown. I went to Westfield Sports High, so I was surrounded, unlike Danielle, surrounded around sporty kids. I went to school with the likes of David Carney, Michael Clark, all the superstar players. So, but in saying that, there was a lot of just the normal kids sort of thing that didn't play sport, basically. So it was a good combination, going to school and playing sport at the same time. And growing up around this area, it sort of taught me a lot, especially around the Campbelltown area. And it probably taught me most of all is how to fight. And that's one thing that I've always done, and you can see that in my game and also my life as well.
Would we say you're an aggressive player, H?
You possibly could, but that just comes from my upbringing. Is you grew up in a family of 5 children. You had to fight to get to the dinner table to get the biggest piece of steak. So it's definitely in my blood, and it's something that, especially around the West Sydney, you look at the West Sydney Wanderers that have just recently entered the W League team. Look at the supporters at the moment. It's phenomenal. It's, like I said at the start, it's in my blood from a young age, and still is. And you can see that around West Sydney with, doesn't matter if it's football, AFL, netball, whatever sport it is. It's just, it's fantastic to see.
We're going to have a sibling count a little later, because if H has got 5 and Leo's got 9, did you say? And Marcia, one of 11? 12, sorry. We're going to... the extended families that you've got must be absolutely huge. Brooks, tell us about how these ladies, if they want to play football, how many footballers, as in soccer football, have we got here? Okay, quite a few, and it is the fastest growing women's sport, is it, ladies? Is that
I believe
correct?
so,
yeah. So tell them how they can continue to look at a football career. What are the pathways now? Because of course we have the W League.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, for me, I gave up for 2 years after I finished Year 12 because there was no National League, and I got to a point where I was like, well, what am I doing here? And it was only the W League coming back in 5 years ago that brought me back. So at the moment, there's no institute program within New South Wales, but Football New South Wales have developed their own institute program. So it starts off, obviously, you have your grassroots clubs where you can register to those if you're not playing at the moment. It then moves into, we have a state league and a Premier League system going at the moment, which will then lead you into the pathway for the national program. So everything, I mean, it's a big world, but football, especially women's football, is very small, so everybody generally knows everybody. The coaches have coached up to 3 or 4 different sides in 1 year, so if you are out there and you are good enough, you hopefully will be noticed by the people who need to be picking these teams. And I mean, our coach Alan Stajic, he's coached schoolgirls teams, he's coached local club teams, he's coached the Young Matildas, so all these pathways are there, but generally the same people are involved. And if it is something that you're willing to do, you can, once again, internet is amazing for these things these days, but I mean, for me the biggest thing is I drive past local parks nearly all year round and see football being played, so if you are interested, it's an easy thing to get into.
And H, it's changed a lot, hasn't it? Were you one of those girls that grew up playing on a boys' team?
Yeah, I was only just saying that to someone yesterday. Someone asked me how I actually got involved in football, and was I in an all-girls team? Absolutely not. I was the only girl playing from the age of 5 years old right up until 12 years old. The only time I went into an all-girls team was when I first played for Marconi, and I was 13 years old. The smallest shirt they had was swimming on me. My shorts were down to my ankles. I was 14 when I went to an all-girls team at about 14. So it's definitely changed. I love that there's so many girls that play sport in general and also football, which I mainly see coaching the youngsters and things like that, and putting back to grassroots football. So it's important, and if you do want to get involved, just jump on the Football Federation website, and if you don't know any clubs, just put in there, find a football team, and there's a little box that you put in, and you put your postcode in, and that'll find your football team around your area. So Obviously, it's the world game, and being biased, it's one of the best games. But also, at a young age, it's good for motor skills as well. So, my young daughter will be playing football initially.
Good stuff. Another young Matilda. Ladies, before I finish, Danielle, you've got something on your shirt. Can you explain that to us? Not the Football Federation side, obviously, the other one.
Yeah. So about 18 months ago, FFA and the government put together a program called Illicit Drugs and Alcohol in Sport. So what we do as players, they get majority of A-League and W-League players go out to sporting clubs, and we promote healthy lifestyles and positive choices. So there's certain players that will go out and deliver. Sometimes it's a PowerPoint presentation, sometimes it's just an open discussion. And what we do is try and teach the players some positive things and try and help them in their lives. We talk about nutrition, hydration, how many hours sleep you should be getting a night, certain things like that. And then we also explain some of the severities of drugs and alcohol in sport. I'm sure you've all been watching the news lately and seen a little bit about that, but what we're trying to do is keep our sport clean. And at the moment we do have a very good image. So I think it's a great initiative by FFA, and hopefully it's something that will continue on. So that's part of the reason why we're here today as well.
Great stuff. Thank you, ladies. Any questions for Danielle or Heather? Oh, you're a quiet bunch this morning. Anyone? Wave your hand. Well, these girls are clearly answering all these questions too very well. Please give a very big round of applause to Danielle and Heather. Sorry, the lights are on me, so I can't actually see that well.
Why don't you just call it soccer?
Okay, why don't you just call it soccer?
I'll answer that. There's only 2 countries in the world that call it soccer. It's our fellow neighbours of the Americans and Australia, and it's the world game. So how many countries in the world play football? Hundreds?
213, I think it was, in FIFA.
213 call it football, so that's why we do call it football, and it's the world game.
The reason it's confusing in Australia is, of course, because we have 4 codes that all call themselves a certain brand of football, and soccer is actually an abbreviation of association football. That's where soccer came from. Does that help you out? Anyone else?
Down the front.
I am blind, you know that. Could you repeat that question, sorry?
Did any of us play for New South Wales Institute when we were younger? For myself, I've been part of the New South Wales Institute of Sport team since I was 15, and like Danielle just said, that's just finished up just this year, unfortunately, which is very disappointing. So I'm only young, so I've been part of the team for 15 years. And Danielle?
Yeah, I was 13 when I went into the program, so it's only been, 5 years?
Yeah, right. So what is the pathway now for these girls then? You said if they've already got a team, what's their movement then through if they want to take it to the W League or to the Young Matildas?
Well, Football New South Wales have developed their own program, which they've also called the Institute. So it's a similar thing. It used to be called Project 22, and then it changed to something else. So what is happening is they'll have an under-20s team, which will be most of our Matildas at the moment. But then if you're selected as a Matildas player, you can also train in that. So each state at the moment is doing a similar thing, of which when the W League does come around, you either trial for a team or you're asked to come and trial. So for Sydney, we have quite a young team, but all of those girls will be in that Institute program this year.
Anyone else? Sorry, you've clearly got bad eyesight. So.
Is the team called the Matildas?
Yeah, sure is. That's who Brogan and I play for, the Matildas, and then you've got the under-20s at the Young Matildas.
That's the Australian national team. Hopefully the W League grow in the next few years. Hopefully a lot.
We started off with 6 teams, I think initially it was. 8 teams. But we started off with 10 rounds.
Yes.
10 rounds, that's what it was.
Why are you looking at me?
Stephanie's one of the commentators and the chief analysts of the W League. So
and Heather plays in it, so you think you should know how many weeks she played for.
So the league at the moment is only 3 months, so hopefully that can grow dramatically. Hopefully it can be a 4 to 6 month league. That allows the players to play as many games as possible, and most of the players can stay in Australia. I think the long-term goal for women's football is to be either at a semi-professional or a professional league. That way you can strengthen our national team.
And of course, with the W League season, we often lament the fact that it's so short, and I know part of that is broadcast as well. This year it was 11 or 12 rounds with finals again, but it does also tie in quite well with the overseas season. And guys, how many of your teammates play either in Europe or in the States?
I think we've got about 10 to 12 that are going away in the next couple of weeks at the moment. Yeah.
So there are opportunities there as well, although we do want to keep everyone here. Has anyone else got a question? Shout out, because I'm thinking there's no more hands up. All good. Ladies, please thank Heather and Danielle. All right, we're going to put the ball away for a while. We're going to start cross-training. So let's welcome a professional triathlete who's ranked 13th in the world in her sport. It's a very good morning to Rebecca Hosky. Please make her very welcome. Now, you are, well, technically, and I'll ask Nazmi about this in a moment, but the only one here that's not part of a team. What's it like playing an individual or training for an individual sport?
Yeah, I was just thinking about that, just listening to the other girls talk. I was like, oh, I feel very solo here. I've growing up, I've always sort of done more individual sports. I come from a running background, doing athletics. I went into triathlon later in life. For me, I actually really like competing for myself because I'm responsible for me and my training, and I have sort of more control over my lifestyle and my goals and my ambitions and dreams in the sport. It's an environment that I'm certainly a lot more familiar with. I've certainly played hockey and netball and had a crack at everything when I grew up at school, but it found that I was actually more suited to more individual sports from a physical and also a mindset perspective. I love the challenge of just the mindset and the mental aspect of pushing yourself, from an individual level.
And you grew up in the country, didn't you, northern New South Wales?
Yes.
What was on offer at your school?
Yeah, I actually grew up in a little place called Kentucky, which has got a population of about 160 people. I grew up on a rural property, and my primary school had 6 people in my class. So very, very small. Growing up, I used to help my dad a lot on the farm, and I did a lot of horse riding. And then I went to Armidale for high school. It wasn't a very big high school. I think it had something like 300 students total, or 50 in my class. Being sort of rural, sort of, or northern New South Wales area, I think in terms of triathlon, it's from what I understand, it's certainly more developed now, but back when I was younger, when I was going through high school, it really wasn't that well established. And it was more of a hockey and a netball sort of culture in northern New South Wales. Rugby was huge because the Armidale University is up there. So it was more sort of the team sports, actually. So it wasn't until I moved away to Sydney that I was sort of more open to more opportunities and met more people in the area of triathlon. So, yeah.
I'm sure you're all aware what is involved in a triathlon. Beck is... she qualifies for the Hawaii Ironman Championship. Can you just tell us a bit about that? Takes sort of triathlon to a whole new level, doesn't it?
The Hawaii World Ironman Championships, it's considered as one of the pinnacles in the sport, other than going to the Olympics in triathlon. It's an ultra-endurance triathlon event. So in triathlon, there's actually a number of different distances. So you've got sprint, which is a 500 metre swim, a 20k on the bike, and then a 5k run. Then you've got the Olympic distance, which is the 1.5k swim, 40 kilometres on the bike, and a 10k run, which is one of the more common triathlon distances for athletes up to under 23 through to late 20s. And then more mature athletes then go into more half Ironman and Ironman, which is where the Hawaii Ironman Championships comes in, and it's more sort of ultra endurance, which goes up to a 4k swim, 180 k's on the bike, and a marathon to finish it off. And in Hawaii, you've got extreme heat and humidity just thrown in there for a little extra spice. So, yeah.
So on that note, Beck, why do these ladies want to go and do triathlon? Sounds really exhausting. It's a wonderful cross-training though. Is it something more for people who are good at perhaps two of the disciplines, like say swimming and biking?
Yeah, I mean certainly for you girls at your level, most athletes who get into the sport more so come from a swimming and a running background actually. They're either like, a good squad swimmer and swimming at national levels, or they're, or they're running at higher levels if they want to get into a development national talent identification program, or just into a under 23s team. But certainly it's not just there for, people that might have more talent than someone else. It's a fantastic sport. It's swim, bike and run. It's got 3 different disciplines. The community involved is absolutely fantastic. It's a very family orientated sport, and there's loads of clubs, triathlon clubs all through Sydney, which you can get in contact with, and it's opportunities for people to compete at all levels. So, I think there's a huge amount of variety in it.
Anyone here done a triathlon? 1, are you serious? 2, 3, 4? A handful. Times to get out there and toughen up, ladies. Has anyone got any questions about triathlon, how to get involved, and for Beck, about her career? She's also got a degree in, can you remind me, Beck, you've got urban town planning?
Yeah, I've actually got a degree in town planning, so...
Because that relates quite well to triathlon, doesn't it?
Yes, that's right.
But that's important, isn't it, the education side?
Yeah, look, I think it's really important that in sport you develop lots of skills in sport that you take with you in other aspects of your life and your career decisions. And I think it's a fantastic tool in terms of motivation, organisation, time management, and getting amongst a group of like-minded people that are going to motivate you to pursue your passion and ambitions in your life. So it's a fantastic vehicle from that perspective. And for me, I have a career in town planning, but triathlon's my passion, and I'm it's all about lifestyle balance for me. And
Yeah, I can see an endurance triathlon's about balance.
Yeah.
Overachieving, Beck. No, it's a fantastic story. Ladies, any questions? What age did you start triathlon?
I started triathlon when I was 28. Yeah, so quite late.
Yesterday.
No, I haven't been to the Olympics. I'm not quite fast enough. I went into the sport a little bit too late in life as well to go to the Olympics.
What's the furthest triathlon that you've been in?
It's an Ironman triathlon. So that's the ultra endurance triathlon event, which is I went to Hawaii in 2011. So yeah, the distances. Yeah, it's a 4 kilometre swim, 180 k's on the bike, and a 42k run. So in total, it's about 226 kilometres, which my best time is 9 hours and 19 minutes. But in triathlon, you can take up to 17 hours to do an Ironman triathlon. So you've got all day, and there's a smorgasbord of food and drink for your entire race. So you can stop whenever you like, and you can even call into Macca's if you feel like it too. I'm known people
because that's what you want to do in the middle of a triathlon.
That's right. Carbo load.
Was it hard not having a support network?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. It's something that I've had to really, it's all had to come from me in terms of where I am today. And it's all about starting small and growing and meeting people and making contacts and networking that way. So, yeah.
How long did it reach to get to your best?
How long did it take? My first Ironman that I did was in Port Macquarie in 2000 when I was 29, 2006, and that took me 11 hours and 10 minutes. So now I race professionally as an athlete amongst the world's best, and it's been an incredible journey.
Up the bank? Why'd you start so
I think it's mostly because I wasn't really exposed to triathlon in Armidale when I grew up in high school, so I really didn't know very much about the sport at all. And triathlon is actually quite a young sport compared to sports like football that we just heard about before. It's really been only around for about 20 years. It doesn't have that sort of depth of other more traditional sports and networks and support networks that are already set up. And I got into it through running, actually. I wanted to do a marathon coming back from some travel, and that's when I met some triathletes, and I thought, wow, this is just fantastic, really motivated, and it was just another whole challenge for me. So that's how I got into the sport late in life. It's quite
true. You train for a 9-hour race.
Yeah. Well, I have a coach, and he writes me a program. In fact, I've got a whole support network of specialist people, physio, and I've got a massage therapist, and I've got my coach, and I've got a very supportive husband as well. And basically, it's just about time management, training before and after work, or like you guys would do at school. You train before in the morning or after school, or on weekends when you have your competition, you just basically try to, at minimum, you sort of try and do 3 swims, 3 bikes and 3 runs. I do a little bit more than that at the moment, but just start off small and you grow, and it's all about what works best for you and your balance and fitting it in with all your other lifestyle commitments and still having fun. The most important thing is that you're enjoying it and the people that you train and race with.
Now, Beck's going to be around for a little bit afterwards, are you?
Yes.
So you can ask some more questions. I'll just take 2 more because otherwise you won't get to eat breakfast if we don't keep going.
What's your
Personal best?
My personal best? I raced Busselton Ironman. It's in Western Australia last year, and I came 3rd in that event. I would probably say that's my best result, with finishing in just over 9 hours with a 3-hour 9 marathon. So I was pretty proud of that.
I've got everyone else just coming. Andrew.
How many hours? I probably train around about 25 to 30 hours a week. A lot of miles on the bike. Probably about 14 hours on the bike at the moment. I'm doing an Ironman triathlon in a couple of weeks, so the volume's pretty high at the moment, along with Sarah, who you'll meet a little bit later. We're both going to do Ironman Melbourne in 2 weeks, so the volumes are pretty high at the moment, but after that it's Easter and I'll be eating lots of chocolate eggs and doing nothing.
So there is a downtime for a
That's
triathlete.
right.
Ladies, would you please thank Beck Hosky?
Thanks very much for having me.
All right, time now to pick up the bat. This cricket star's captained the Australian women's cricket team to both T20, World Cup and Ashes victories. And of course, she's just come back to Australia with yet another World Cup trophy. Please welcome Alex Blackwell. All right, Alex, now I've only ever known you as a cricketer. Mm-hmm. Is that all you've ever played? Is that how you got into sport?
No, I played any sport I could get to. I grew up in a small country town as well, so my parents obviously had to drive my sisters and I around to our sporting events. So parents are a big part of sport. Played soccer or football, I should say, for a long time, as well as cricket. So in the country, there's not often just girls' competitions. So my twin sister and I, we grew up playing soccer and cricket against the boys. So I think that is a really great beginning for competitive sport. And I don't play competitive football anymore. I actually had a gap of about 10 years, but I've just signed up for social football. Don't tell the cricket organisation yet, but I had my first training session last night. My calves are killing me. But yeah, I just love that sort of real burn when you really have to run hard and you're executing skills while you're also really red-faced and stuff like that. Like in cricket, there's not so much of an endurance aspect. So hearing these stories, I think I'm going to keel over just thinking about it. But yeah, I love all sport. But I think what really captured me with cricket was the skill component of it. It's such an intricate game with three facets within the game, being batting, bowling and fielding. Within bowling itself, you can look at that as having many different varieties of bowling. You've got people who bowl leg spin like Shane Warne, and then you've got offies who spin it the other way. You've got pace bowlers, you've got girls who bowl just dibbly dobblers who you put nothing on the ball, they don't turn it, but somehow they're very effective. So there's so many different skills, and having played in the Australian team for a long time now, 10 years, I actually sort of come back to the very beginning and realise that I actually just love playing for the raw skill and, enjoying hitting the ball out of the middle of the bat. The sound that makes is incredible, and seeing it fly across the ground's awesome. And the way that you can take a catch, you'd never expect a catch. You've got to be trying to expect one, but you don't know it's going to come to you at any one time. And to be able to take a classic catch, I think, is one of the best feelings. And you may have seen Lisa Sthalekar take one of the best catches I've ever seen to win the World Cup, the last moment of the game. So it's all about the skill for me.
Yeah, with her retirement, we're going to miss watching her play. But no, absolutely about the skill. The women's cricket team, Alex, has done so very, very well. Does it ever get your goat that the men's team is really quite crap and they get all the headlines?
It's actually quite good when they do really crap, because we get more of the publicity. And since the World Cup win a few weeks ago, we've had such a tremendous response to that, and it's been really pleasing to come back here and people are saying well done, and there's been people recognise me down the street or in my professional sort of life as well. So yeah, people notice. And when I captained the Ashes back in 2011, we pulled this win from nowhere. We were behind in the game the whole time, and a hat trick in the second innings by Renee Farrell just flipped the game on its head. We actually declared behind the first innings total, which only I think it's happened twice before. And we remarkably won the Ashes in 2011, having lost it back in 2005. And the guys couldn't quite manage their Ashes victory in that season, so I was very happy about that, because the titles were "Girls Show Ricky how it's done" or something like that. So yeah, that was a great moment for us.
Yeah, nice one. And just before I open it to the floor, Alex, you also get to travel a lot with cricket, although you spend a lot of time, would I be right, in the subcontinent. When you talk about endurance, you're a top order batsman, so you're sprinting back and forth between the wickets in ridiculous heat in India a lot of the time. What's that experience like?
With a helmet on, and you're just sweating like crazy under that, and lots of equipment. So it's fantastic playing in the subcontinent. It's probably one of the most challenging places I've ever competed, and from the perspective of the wickets are very different, and also dealing with the humidity and sometimes illness, which is hard to avoid. So yeah, look, it's a great place to play, and that's it's been spoken about already. The opportunity to travel and just see places you'd never ever dream about, visiting. So I think places like Sri Lanka, India, going to South Africa, the West Indies, it's been incredible for me, and I've been lucky enough to do it for about 10 years, and hopefully a few more years. I'm not sure yet, but the balancing act is pretty crucial when it comes to playing elite sport and holding down a job.
Yeah, therein lies the challenge, doesn't it? Of course, you play club cricket too. Are you fronting up for the Lend-Lease Breakers again?
Yep, so I'm captain of the Lend-Lease Breakers. It's arguably one of the best sporting teams in Australia.
Well, you've just lifted 2 trophies already this year, haven't you? You're in your third, aren't you, with the World Cup?
Actually, it's a bit embarrassing really, but I've lifted, I didn't lift them, but I was a part of 2 World Cup victories in the space of 6 months, and within that 6 months, New South Wales won the T20 trophy and the 50 over trophy. My club team's just won the T20 trophy, and we've got one more to go, the 50 over final, which is coming up in a few weeks. So I play for the university's Women's Cricket Club, and I think that's one thing I'm quite passionate about, is trying to encourage girls to continue playing their sport once they leave school, because we've got such great access to sport when we're at school, and things sort of priorities shift a little bit. When we leave school, we might go to university, we might get a job or go on a gap year, but I think it's really important to continue with the things that you love doing. There's no reason why you can't continue to play sport at a purely a participation level. I think that's the greatest thing about sport. It's so much fun getting out there, running around with your friends.
Lifting trophies is pretty fun.
Oh, that's all right. Yeah.
Ladies, any questions for Alex? Yep.
What's the most runs you've ever got in a match?
I got 180 in a 50 over game, and that's the highest score for anyone in the women's grade competition here in Sydney. So I actually regret that a little bit, because I got out in the 42nd or 3rd over, so there was still 8 overs of the game left, and I could have easily got 200. I think I got a bit greedy and started trying to hit the ball over the fence, got caught on the boundary. So yeah, 180.
Yep. Oh, sorry, yep.
When did you start playing cricket?
When? I started when I was about 6 or 7, just learning the skills in an indoor cricket centre. So I guess that's been a really great thing that I started at a young age. But I know that, I'm 29 now, by the way, so I've played for a long time. But girls and men as well, they can start the game at any age. I know that one of the best players I've played alongside, Shelley Nitschke, she was the #1 player in the world just a few years ago. She made the Australian team at my age now, and she had 6 really good years at the top level, and she played netball, softball, all the other sports, and just really started to get into cricket sort of mid-20s. So you just never know, and I like trying lots of different sports as well.
Up the back.
How old were you when you first discovered your passion for cricket?
Yes, good question. So as I said, I did play lots of different sports, and I had soccer and cricket as two of my main sports, probably right up until the end of school. I also threw javelin at a pretty high level as well. I think it was at the end of high school I went straight into university, and it was at the end of my first year of uni that I made the Australian team. And at that moment I realised that this is probably the sort of sport for me, and I sort of got that feeling toward the end of high school as well. With the HSE happening, I had to sort of cut down a little bit from all the sports that I was playing. So I did have to sort of decline a few opportunities within football to play with the schoolgirls teams and that sort of thing. So you just start to have to make some choices at different times. So probably at the end of year 12, I started to really pursue cricket as my number one.
Great to have those choices, Alex. We're going to take two more, ladies. You up the back and wave your hand at me. Yes, you there. Does your twin sister play cricket?
Yep. So Kate and I, we're best mates, and that's just been incredible to play cricket for 20 odd years together, to travel the world, represent Australia together, play test match cricket together, like the War brothers. We're the first identical twins to play cricket for Australia, male or female. And sadly, Kate retired from the game at 27. And I believe that there was still her best to come, but other things start happening in your life, and she's doing very well in her career now. So she's my number one supporter, which is great because I always need to call her to debrief after getting a duck or whatever. So it's great to have her.
There are a million Blackwell sisters as well, aren't there? Are there
I'm one of 4 girls.
4 girls.
Yeah.
What's your greatest achievement?
Greatest achievement, I would say leading Australia to a World Cup victory back in 2010. I found myself in the captaincy role due to an injury to our regular captain, and being able to step up in that role and sort of operate well under pressure and in an environment where we were very much the underdogs, and we just kept chipping away, and we focused on enjoying ourselves while we were playing, and we ended up playing New Zealand in the final and managed to defend 106 runs in a 20-over game, which is pretty much unheard of. And we did it we finished the match on the very last ball of the innings. So, it couldn't have got any more exciting than that. And to be able to lift the trophy, it was such a proud moment for me. And just to know that the girls had gone through a lot to get there, and we really fought hard for it. And we sort of come up with the goods right at the end.
Great stuff. Please thank Alex Blackwell. All right, well, girls, you're probably aware the NRL season kicked off last night with all the drama surrounding the men's teams on and off the field. It's nice to hear from an Australian representative from the 2009 Women's Rugby League team, who were clean and well behaved, of course. So please give a round of applause to Canley Vale Dragons Rugby League prop Eliana Watson. So this is another one of these sports that, like I was saying to our AFL ladies, it's not the first one you think of when you think of girls playing sport. What got you into rugby league?
My mum. My mum plays. My mum played for 15 years back in New Zealand. I come from a rugby league family, a rugby union family, and I'm the eldest of 7, so I used to go and run her water when she used to play, and carry the tea for the team and just help the coach with anything, carry the cones and the balls and stuff. And I was probably about, I think, 8 when I started getting involved. And I think it was about 15 and a half when I played women's, because there was no schoolgirls or any girls teams. I went to school in Brisbane, and I played open women's when I was 15. So, wow. And I tell you, I was scared. I was scared in my first game, but I actually tackled my auntie. I played against my auntie.
Did you take her out?
I saved the try. She almost got a try, and I pretty much smashed her. So, and then she didn't know it was me because I had headgear on, and I was a marker. And she got up and played the ball, and she was trying to have a fight with me because I saved the try. So
she found out, and she hasn't spoken to you since, right?
She's my favourite auntie.
So, how many of do you have brothers?
Yes, the eldest is 7, so I've got 3.
Of course you do. Right. Yeah. So, how many of them play league? That'd be union.
They all play
league.
League. I come from a mixture of sports: softball, netball, touch, and. Yeah, we all play. My brothers play club level in New Zealand. I'm the only one here that lives in Australia, but they all play club level. My brother's trying to make the Warriors. I think under 20s, he's trying to make that. And I have 2 cousins that play in the Broncos. I think it's under 20s as well. Yes, I come from a real rugby league family.
Totally sporty family. Tell me, tell us why these ladies should get involved in rugby league. What's the best thing about it from your perspective?
From my perspective, I chose rugby league as more of a mental hurdle, just to get over that fear of you see a bigger girl coming at you and you're a lot smaller. Like I wanted to challenge myself physically to get over that barrier, and because I played netball at state level and all that, and basketball as well, and that's non-contact sport. So I wanted to be able to push myself to that level where I was not afraid of if someone was way bigger than me or if someone was faster than me. I wanted to be able to, mentally get over that hurdle of rugby league's only for men and for boys. And it's at a level now that women, I think they're semi-pro now. So, rugby league in Australia is picking up. We're like second in the world. So.
Do you know, now I know you didn't grow up here, but do you know how these girls could get involved in rugby league?
We have, in Sydney alone, in New South Wales alone, I think we have 15 teams with 3 divisions. So we have a Illawarra, Wollongong division, we have Sydney Metro, and also a Penrith division for open women's. I know we have schoolgirls as well, so the under 19s as well. Their level is pretty intense, they're pretty strong, coming from schoolgirls. I think you can go to leaguesafe.com and check on the website the same as the girls. They said you can put in your zip code and you can check out the clubs in that, and you find it online. That's how I found it. I actually paid for the Canterbury Bulldogs when I first started. I actually wanted to play. I was about 7 months pregnant, and so I started going when I was pregnant.
It's not the first sport I would have picked, but. And what did you have? Girl or boy?
I've got 2 kids. I've got a girl and a boy.
A girl and a boy.
Yeah, and my girl, she's playing under 6s.
Fantastic. And would you then say that for any of these young ladies, it doesn't matter how small and slight or how big you are, can you play rugby league, or do you need to be pretty well built?
No, that's the thing. That's why I love league so much, is that it doesn't matter your religion, your race, your culture, anything, your size, your stature. It doesn't matter anything about that. It's about the skill level, like cricket. It's about your passion, if you have the passion for it, and it's about the social aspect of playing, that you get to play in the girls, like the AFL, you're a mixture of about 20-something girls, and everyone gets a go, that you're not like sitting on the sideline waiting, the best girls get to play, everyone gets involved, whether you're running the water, just recovering the ball from the goal, or, everyone's able to play. Yeah, you just got to have that heart of getting involved, not to hold back and just get involved.
So how many of you girls have played rugby league? Quite a few. I'm impressed. All right, who's got questions for Eliana? Yep, you.
Who's your favourite team from the guys' division?
Well, I went to school in Brisbane, so the Broncos.
Yes.
I love Darren Lockyer. He's my idol. So.
Are you also a red in State of Origin then?
Yes.
Good. Right answer. Sorry, I did see another hand waving there. Yes. Don't be shy. Go.
Yeah.
You.
What nationals?
Sorry?
What nationality? New Zealand, aren't you?
I'm Samoan, Cook Island European.
Someone from the sisterhood up there, clearly. Go for it, up the back. What position do you play? You got a couple, don't you?
Oh yeah, I'm in club. I captain the Canterville Dragons, and I play lock, number 13. And at New South State of Origin level, not fast enough for 13, so I play prop, and for Australia I play prop.
Yep.
Just out of curiosity, you mentioned that some of your family members play in New Zealand. In comparison, how do you think Australia fares with women in sport in comparison to New Zealand?
Coming from a league perspective, Australia in general with rugby league, we're probably just a bit behind New Zealand. New Zealand's the world champions, and they have been for a very long time. In the final of our World Cup in 2008 at Suncorp Stadium, we got smashed 44-4. And their level, I know when my mum played, they had 3 divisions with about 15 teams per division, and I know they're really competitive in their rugby league. I know for Australia, we're coming up, we're awesome. Like, we're just a bit above England, and England are professional athletes. They're full-time athletes, whereas for us, we still have to hold down jobs, families, husbands, and stuff like that. And a lot of our girls are in school, at uni. So from my perspective, I think Australia is coming up, but if we get the insights of people like, all the top women that's in the boards and all that, backing us, our level will just jump, and we're on our way to success, I think.
Anyone else? Ladies, please put your hands together for Eliana Watson. Now we're going to go from one extreme to the other. We're going to go to rhythmic gymnastics now. And the team at the Commonwealth Games in Delhi cheered Nazmi to 3 gold medals, 2 silver medals, and she was also part of the Olympic team for Beijing 2008. Please welcome Nazmi Johnston. So tell us, how did you get involved in rhythmic gymnastics? Because a lot of girls go to gym classes. Was it an extension of that?
Yeah, so I lived in Lismore, and my older sister was doing artistic gymnastics there. She was very flexible, a lot more flexible than me, and she was scouted to do rhythmic gymnastics. She moved to the city, and we followed her, and I was always in the gym watching her train, and eventually I started as well.
And your sister was also at Commonwealth Games?
Yeah, she went to the Commonwealth Games and she got 2 silver and 2 bronze, I think, so I beat her.
That's what it's all about, good sibling rivalry. So you decided to carry on with that. Now, it's a sport that I guess when girls' bodies start to grow, some girls find it more difficult to keep up because they perhaps lose flexibility, or it takes a lot of work. What was the passion for you with rhythmic gymnastics?
It's a bit of a different sport. People think of gymnastics and they think of artistic automatically. Rhythmic's a little bit different, so we use the ribbon, the ball, the clubs, the rope, and it requires a lot of flexibility, but you do start training from a young age, and you develop that flexibility, and if you keep training, you don't really lose it, but you tend to feel it when you have a break over Christmas and you're like, oh my gosh, everything's gone. So you definitely have to keep at that sport for a while. I know it's not a team sport, but you still have that team environment at training. So even though you compete for yourself, when you're at training 6 days a week for 5 hours a day, you train with like a group of girls, and you still get that team environment, and the people that you meet along the way are lovely.
And how much of a lifestyle thing is being a gymnast as well? Because of course gymnasts are all light, slight, very bendy, stretchy, all that sort of thing. What does your lifestyle follow?
I think that's just a result of the training more than the type of person it attracts. So we do a lot of fitness, so we'll run and we'll do skipping and we'll do a lot of conditioning and ballet. So the physique kind of comes from that.
And with for the audience here today, can anyone do rhythm gymnastics? Because I know that artistic gymnastics, I was 13 when I hit 6 foot and they just looked at me and laughed. I was also not particularly graceful or flexible, so that ruled me out of gymnastics anyway. But can anyone of any shape and size? Because the artistic gymnast seems to be about this high.
So that's the result of the training as well, because they do a lot of impact, so they're quite
stunted
short.
growth.
Yeah, and rhythmic's a bit more about extending the muscles, and height's not such a factor that comes into it. For our competitions, you can compete individually or you can do a team competition, and there's all different levels available, so it really is for anyone that enjoys it.
All right, I'm going to open it to you girls in just a minute. One question I do have for you, because I love watching rhythm gymnastics at either Commonwealth Games or Olympics. It's one of those sports that I just sit there and go, wow. And perhaps it's because it's one of the only times we get to see it on television.
Yeah.
What goes through your head when you throw the ball up, you do your backflip and the ball's not there? I just watch that and think I'd just stop and go, forget it.
I think that happened at the Commonwealth Games finals in hoop. It's the only one that I didn't medal on, so I came fourth. I did a walkover with the hoop on my foot, did another walkover and was just like, no, it's too far. I had to run and try and get it. It's a bit embarrassing when you have to run for it, but what can you do? You just have to pick it up and keep going. You train, like I said, like 25 hours a week, so you kind of get that awareness of when you are throwing, exactly, how straight your arm has to be, where you have to let go, so a lot goes into it. So if you've done the training, hopefully
it's
won't
there.
be going crazy.
Who's got questions for Nazmi? Up the back there, go for it.
I think I started when I was about 8, and I think I did it for about 14 years.
Seriously, how did you hear that? Wow.
Do you compete in a group or single?
I do individuals, so routine on my own.
How many backflips could you do?
We don't do backflips in rhythmic, okay? So we compete on a hard floor, so we're more like the flexible one, so we do illusions and things, but we don't actually do backflips.
You do slow ones, so back and walkover.
We do walkovers and stuff, but if you did a backflip on that floor, you might, it's not sprung, it wouldn't go down well.
Can you do artistic gymnastics? No.
They're very different sports.
What's your favourite apparatus?
It was hoop, but then I dropped it. And I hated ball, and then I won that one, so I think ball kind of won in the end.
So fickle. Anyone else up there? Did I miss someone? Yep, in the middle. Right, change your mind. Anyone? Ladies, put your hands together for Nazmi Johnson, please. All right, now we've covered 3 of the football codes. Let's take a look at the 4th one now. And apologies to you two on the end. You're the ones closest to breakfast. So if anyone gets twitchy, it's nothing personal and nothing to do with your sports. We are on to rugby union now. Now, Megan Black is part of the Development Barbarians. She's been in the National Sevens Development Squad, and she's going to talk to us about women and rugby union. Please welcome Megan Black. So tell us, how did you get into rugby union? Have you got 17 brothers at home as well?
No, I don't. I'm quite new to the sport, to be honest. It's been a whirlwind 6 months of my life. I played touch football growing up and Oztag and various sports as per everyone else here. I was at school in Sydney and I played hockey and I played basketball and I rowed and netball and there lots and lots. I danced even. I did a lot of sports. And then, my school introduced touch football in the later years, so I picked that up more for a social thing. And then just 6 months ago, I finished school now. I went to university and I went on with my life just playing social sport. And then just 6 months ago, the Australian Rugby Union, I saw an email that went round through universities, and the email said they're trialling talent identification for women in sevens rugby, which is 7-a-side rugby union. And I just thought, why not? I'll give it a go. And I tried out. in Sydney. There was a talent ID day in Sydney, and then from there on, it just in about a month's space, it just snowballed into a bit of a tap on the shoulder. We like you, and now here I am in the national development squad for Sevens rugby for women.
And yeah, very well done. With the Sevens, now we know Sevens is going to the Olympics. Are female Sevens going to the Olympics?
Yes.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so
come on, Rio.
We're very, yeah, and I think that's a main drive for me personally. But yeah, so women's rugby union will be at the next Olympics in 2016 in Rio. So that's a very exciting time for rugby, but also I think for a lot of women and all the girls in the squad, we're all very excited and to have that opportunity really. So yeah, bring it on.
So where does Australia rank in rugby?
Depends, I suppose, in the males. I suppose it depends if you're looking at...
the females, we're not interested
in that. Females, we're ranked quite highly. The Sevens team, they're number 1, which is great. But there is quite a lot of competition out there. Japan, China, England and South Africa, they're quite strong as well. So we I suppose the girls in the team, they know that and they train very hard.
Now we had a few leagueies up there. How many of you have played rugby union? Slightly less. Does that surprise you, Megan?
Do you know what? It doesn't. It is a new emerging sport. Rugby union is traditionally a male-dominated sport, but even over the last 2 years, women playing rugby union it's evolving, and the last 2 years it has evolved, and because I think of the Olympics, it's growing and sort of going into that space, and yeah, so it doesn't surprise me that there's low numbers, but I really do think with our development, the development staff that the ARU have in community rugby, they're just driving into that space and doing as much as they can to get women playing rugby union in schools.
So is that how these girls get involved? Will there be camps and things held at their schools? Or
yeah, they do sessions. So our the development staff, they would go out to schools and run sessions. So again, like the other sports have mentioned, if there is interest there, talk with your teachers and then go on the Rugby Union website and just have a look around and see, and again with the Finder Club, there's clubs all over Sydney, all over the state that, type in your postcode and boom, there's some clubs that you can contact.
Now, before we let these girls ask you any questions they may have, what goes into rugby union training? We've heard what goes into football to AFL and to league.
Well, with Sevens, any body shape can play. You can be tall, short, big, small. It's quite a fast game. There's only 7 people on the big field, so there's a lot of running involved. So yeah, we do a lot of conditional training. We do have to be strong when you tackle, so yeah, we do weights as well. And then obviously, as a team, we play and we do all the skills and catch, pass, ruck, maul, line-outs, scrum, yeah.
And aim to go to Brazil.
Yeah,
fantastic.
Exactly.
Ladies, if you've got any questions, please, for Megan. Yep, in the middle here.
Good question. No, I've never come across any myself. It's, a lot of the environment now, there's so many women who are playing, and the coaching staff, players, and so when we are training and when we have gone to some competitions around New South Wales, we've never really come across that yet. There might be some, but no, personally, no.
Yep.
Who do you look up to? Who do you admire?
Now you're going to tell the truth and tell them who you put as your role models on your
I
form.
know. I filled out a form before coming here, and I put my parents and Beyonce.
As you do.
Because I actually thought about that one, and I had a giggle to myself, but I actually love Beyonce because she's an awesome singer, awesome dancer. At the Super Bowl halftime, she was so just amazing.
That's why the lights were still on.
Yeah, exactly. But no, I love Beyonce. I think she's a great example of such a powerful woman, and in so many different aspects. On stage she can sing and dance, and then off stage she's just.
I bet she'd be a really ordinary outside back though.
I know, exactly. But no, I do look up to the Australian women's side, and the captain of that side. Her name is Rebecca Tarvo, and I've had a few conversations with her recently, and I think she's a great example of a woman who plays and has played rugby for some time, and I look up to her because I'm so new to the sport and she's been in it for so long, so it's great to get some advice and knowledge and support from her.
Have you had any really bad injuries
No, not in the development squad. We do have a lot of the physios and the support staff that get out the niggling little aches and pains, but I've luckily, growing up playing on tag and playing touch, I haven't. I've been lucky, touch wood.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
And last one there in the middle.
What position do you play?
I'm an outside back. Pardon? I missed that.
Did you say what's an outside back?
So I'm a back. So obviously we have 7 on the field, and there are forwards, and so I'm a back. So I do a lot of running around the back, and sort of I'm there to support the forwards when they need me. I come in when they need me.
Good stuff. Now I'm sure you have some more questions, but Megan, are you sticking around for a bite to eat?
Yeah, definitely.
Lovely. So please come up and Megan. And lucky last, our final guest this morning, who you've met just a little while ago. Now, she knows a fair bit about rugby union because she had 3 brothers who, they played the game all right, but she did excel at netball. We've met her already this morning. Please welcome Marcia Ella Duncan. Now, don't be fooled into thinking Ella is part of the second part of her first name. She is one of the Ella family, which is 12 kids, was it? 12 kids, and a bucket load of rugby union playing brothers. There's not many Australians who wouldn't have heard of Gary, Glenn and Mark Ella. Why didn't you choose rugby union?
Well, luckily for me, back in my day, not many women played any kind of football code, in fact, although a lot of Aboriginal communities are very strong rugby league communities, so women had been playing rugby league. But I was too young at that time, which was quite a few years ago, I won't tell you how many. But at that time you had to be 18 to play football. So I had older sisters that were playing rugby league. It was unheard of that a woman would play rugby union. Actually, it was quite unheard of that an Aboriginal person would play rugby union. And so, I had to look to other sports. My older sisters were all playing football, but they also played netball, so it was just quite a natural transition for me to, pick up netball as a sport.
And you turned out to be ridiculously talented at that. The first Indigenous athlete to be offered an AIS scholarship and the first Indigenous woman to be on the Australian netball team. Did that make you incredibly proud, or was it the end of frustration that there wasn't enough recognition for Indigenous women?
No, and in fact, at that time, I guess, like most athletes, we're pretty fixed on what our own personal goals are, having pretty rigorous training and competition regimes, so you're pretty focused on the here and now and what you've got to do next. At that time, I was completely unaware that I was, in fact, being the first of anything. It wasn't until, a couple of years after that I realised, wow, I really did do something that was quite unique and quite phenomenal. So there was never any frustration. If anything, there was quite a lot of frustration because, netball, like all women's sport, got very little media attention. Netball for Australia has been, a world leader in netball for a long, long time. And collectively, we were quite frustrated at the lack of sponsorship and the lack of media attention. except when we went to New Zealand and I was in the team, and every time we picked up a paper, all we saw on the front page was Ella. And I thought, oh wow, the boys are in the country, what's going on? Because it's such a mad rugby union country, of course. But, the New Zealand media really went mad on the fact that there was an Ella playing netball. And, the New Zealanders are mad on netball anyway. So I was a little embarrassed at a lot of that attention. I was quite uncomfortable about that. It took a lot of getting used to, because I don't like being compared to my brothers, and they don't like being compared to me. They don't come up very good. But yeah, so no, never really frustrated, just really on the here and now, perhaps a little frustrated for netball generally.
And you've stayed involved in netball. You developed a team called the Pearlers. Can you
I have a club called the Pearlers.
Tell us about that?
I started that club because, I've done a lot of work in Aboriginal affairs. Besides playing netball, I've done a lot of work around child protection issues, about working with families that are in crisis. I have a history of child sexual abuse myself. For me, sport was a way for me to feel good about myself. When I performed well on the netball court, I got a lot of positive feedback about myself. That really helped to build my self-confidence and really helped me to develop some inner strength to cope with what was going on in my life at the time. And I think, as an adult and, after my own netballing career, I can look back now and understand that, sport really gave me a lifeline. And I think that is terribly important. Of course, if you want to, be an elite athlete, you can travel the world, you can go to the Olympics, you can develop a career now in sport, and that is absolutely fabulous. But, I don't know how many millions of girls play netball, and our squad is 12, so you have to be exceptional to get there. But, netball and sport in general has so much to offer. And for me, one of the opportunities that sport offers is really the chance to feel good about yourself, to, develop yourself and your self-confidence, to meet other people. And it really, for me, and I think for a lot of other girls, provides a solid, basis to move forward in the future. And so I put a lot of time back into my community through my local netball club.
And it sounds like, from what I read about them, it sounds like they're all most appreciative. Can you just tell us, before we open the floor for the last time for questions, how do you feel about racism in women's sport? Do you think that there has been any change since you started playing? I did read a paragraph of an interview you did whereby you just played your best and started being picked for teams and tried out for representative teams, didn't think anything of it when you weren't picked, but one of your teachers was very, very angry that you had been marginalised for being Indigenous. Is that how you saw it then, and is that something you see continuing now?
It wasn't how I saw it then. I think when you are the victim of racism and discrimination, that sometimes you can be unaware of it because, you're very young. And, as I mentioned earlier, there was a lot going on in my life. I didn't have a lot of self-confidence. So, it was never of, I was the best player on the court and I didn't get picked. For me, it was, I'm just not good enough again. And put down. And so for a lot of my early life, it was much like that. But one of my teachers, who went on to be my coach for many years, was outraged at that. And I only found out many years later, in fact, that she decided to do something about it. And so she got involved in school sport administration. And I think is now one of the longest serving school sports administrators, recently retired. But her view was that was unacceptable and that should never happen to any child. Later on in life, when I got to high school, and actually I never got picked for a state team in high school, I got picked for New South Wales under-16s. So I never really, and I had a couple of experiences of racism. As I got older, I began to understand what was going on about that, and I started to do things about that. I started to, talk with my teammates and my the team staff about what it meant to be Aboriginal, about what my circumstances were, and about helping people to understand what some of our cultural differences were without being afraid of that. And now I take a very strong stand against racism. I have to say, though, that sport for me is going one of those levelers. You know, you get out there and it doesn't matter what colour you are, it doesn't matter what culture you come from or what race you are, it doesn't matter how big or small you are. The results are really on the scoreboard, as far as I'm concerned. So, you know, I don't think racism in sport is as big an issue as it is in our broader community, but it certainly does exist, and it is no less acceptable.
Thank you, Marcia. Very well said. Ladies, have you got any questions? Yep. Yes, go for it.
Did your parents play any sport?
No, my mother was busy having babies. I think before we had lots and lots of children, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of a sport called Vigoro. It is a most unusual sport. It's a combination, I think, of cricket and tennis. It's cricket played with a tennis bat type thing. And that was a very big sport for women way back in the day. My mother was a well-known Vigoro player. My father was also an accomplished golfer and a successul dart thrower. We grew up with darts everywhere in the house, which was pretty dangerous when you've got 12 kids running around. But there were a lot of, you know, highly successful athletes in my extended family network. I had uncles that were playing first division rugby league, and, you know, I had my own brothers, of course, were playing, representing New South Wales and Australia in different sports, cricket, rugby league and rugby union. So yeah, my parents played a bit of sport, but sport was a big part of my community life.
Okay, we're going to take 3 more questions, 1, 2 and 3 up the back there, and then I have to send you to breakfast. I'm going to be killed.
How old were you when you played for Australia?
I was 20 when I first started playing for Australia.
What position did you play?
Beg your pardon?
Position.
I played for Australia as a centre. My netball career, when I first started out when I was 9, right up until I was about 18, I was a circle defender, goal defence particularly, but I got too short. Everybody else, I finished my growing and everybody else kept growing, so I had to move out of the circle of defence, and I first started out as a wing defence and then ended up in the centre, and that's where I spent all of my representative career.
And up the back there?
What was your favourite position to play and the one you weren't so big for?
My favourite position is probably goal defence. I think I'm a natural defender. We can have a whole discussion around why I think defenders are better than attackers, but that's another time. But even I think one of the attributes that I brought to the centre position was my defensive skills. So, you know, it's quite an asset in a team to have an attacking player that can also defend. And so I think that was one of the things that placed me in good position. But I've always loved goal defence, mainly because I don't like goal shooters. But that's my personal thing.
Touché, Marcia. Girls, please put your hands together for Marcia Ella-Duncan. And once again, a big round of applause for all of our wonderful sporting